Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our event, Standardization of Intervention-Based GHG Accounting or Avoided Emissions in Industry and Finance. My name is Haruka, and I'm honored to be your host today in collaboration with WBCSD. Today, we have invited esteemed guests from businesses, financial institutions, and international initiatives to share their experiences and discuss ways to further promote avoided emissions concept. Let us start this event by inviting METI Japan's Deputy Director General for Green Transformation Policy, Takahiro TAJIRI, on stage to deliver his opening remarks.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us today on this seminar. This seminar is co-hosted with WBCSD, who have shown remarkable leadership in the field of avoided emission. We deeply respect their efforts. Japan focuses on three key aspects in the effects towards net zero. First, to be breakthroughs, which means achieving decarbonization, economic growth, and stable energy supply simultaneously. Second, one goal various pathways, which means recognizing that efforts to achieve net zero should be diverse, considering the economic and the energy circumstances of each country. Third, solution to the world, which means not only reducing Japan's own emissions, but also contributing to a global decarbonization through solution. And solution to the world is the other name of this pavilion. You can see the Japan's, these are many displays of the Japanese technology. Especially in the third message, avoided emission is a key factor. Avoided emissions measures how much a solution contributes to decarbonization across society. It is a forward-looking mechanism that not only visualizes the amount of reduction, but also indicates the growth potential of the companies. We aim to evaluate the reduction potential of new decarbonization technologies and solutions across society and link these results to evaluation by financial institutions and governments. Moreover, avoided emission can reveal the potential decarbonization technologies and solutions that companies possess, promoting innovation. The spread of decarbonization technologies can lower the baseline for society as a whole, creating a virtuous cycle where innovation generates more innovation. In the outcome document of the G7 Climate, Energy, and Environment Ministers meeting held in April last year, chaired by Japan, avoided emissions were recognized as an important mechanism and noted for their role in mobilizing funds for decarbonization technologies and solutions. To enable fair and transparent comparisons across different companies and solutions, and to reduce the risk of inappropriate use of avoided emissions, a reliable calculation method is essential. Developing such a methodology requires strength cooperation among standard setters, business companies, including financial institutions, and third-party verification bodies. We welcome the second guidance on avoided emissions that WBCSD will start consulting on today. We will also hear a keynote from ISSB, a case study from Mizuho Securities and Ajinomoto. And after that, in the panel discussion, leaders from standard setters such as GHG Protocol, ISO, IEC, and PCAF will gather to further discuss the standardization of avoided emission. I look forward to today's discussion. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Tajiri-san. Next, we welcome WBCSD's Executive Vice President, Dominic, on stage. Yeah.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Here we are, it's Saturday. So well done to be here still. And deep thanks and appreciation to you, Tajiri-san, and METI for putting on an amazing show and to have such a great audience for this discussion. We're delighted to co-host this session with you, and also for the collaboration with METI over the past several years now on avoided emissions. Now, since the mid-1990s, frameworks like the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, CDP, and GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative, have laid out an important foundation for corporate emissions reporting and reduction. And today, we must build on these frameworks and expand them to accelerate that decarbonization journey to achieve net zero by 2050. And it's very much in that context that we welcome and congratulate IFRS Foundation and ISSB for the emergence of a common corporate sustainability disclosure framework. And it's wonderful to have Mardi here, who's been a great champion of this agenda over several years. And I'm delighted that in June 2024, this year, the Greenhouse Gas Protocol signed an MOU with ISSB to be the carbon accounting and guidance mechanism of choice for that emerging framework. However, when we look at the bigger picture, and as COP29 is constantly reminding us, we're currently not on track for 1.5 degrees. And we really do need to step up our efforts to reach that 47% reduction by 2030, which UNEP Closing the Gap report is reminding us of. Sometimes we get immune to these figures, but 47% reduction by 2030 in 6 years is a huge challenge. And that means that as great as the architecture for disclosure is alone, we cannot just rely on a compliance agenda to get us there. We need to leverage the build of these common accounting, reporting, standards, and disclosure frameworks for sustainability to also spur innovation, as many discussions in the Blue Zone, including here in the Japan Pavilion, are emphasizing. So how to do this? The emergence of a complementary carbon accounting framework for companies to harness is so important, and it's required so it does not only see enterprises as sources of emissions to be reduced, but also as solution providers who can provide breakthrough goods and services that reduce the emissions across the economy, both for other business and consumers and wider society. We've been stuck for a long time in the very, very important inventory accounting space. Super important, like financial reporting. You know, how did I do last year compared to 2 years ago? Well, we haven't opened up until the emergence of the avoided emissions guidance is the intervention accounting. You know, where are the innovations that will change business models over the next 10 years? And how can we compare apples to apples across these different innovations that innovators and entrepreneurs are presenting to us? So avoided emissions guidance helps us understand the impact that these low carbon solutions can have on other businesses or consumers. And particularly, and this is a super important point, which we often forget in this discussion, not only for the enterprise or for society, but to help direct those innovations and business solutions to different countries or societies where at the moment there's a high carbon economy, because the impact over the next 10 years at the margin of producing those innovations in high carbon economies will be great. And that's a very, very interesting market signal for businesses who are looking to innovate into low carbon solutions, not just their own business model, but also to be directed to key markets where the impact will be higher. Of course, as the market for such solutions rapidly expands, this is why it's so important to have this need for harmonized, standardized metrics to effectively measure their potential, so that we can measure these apples to apples. And it is possible for policymakers and those in the financial community to create the right kinds of incentives and place the right kind of bets. So that's why the avoided emissions and intervention-based impact accounting methodologies are key for this. It's a bit boring, but it's the plumbing that sits underneath all of that innovation agenda, such that policymakers like METI and financial innovators like many of you in the room can place your bets and help to incentivize. And that's why we've been so proud at WBCSD to work to support these global efforts. And we welcome not only the arrival of the framework of guidance for avoided emissions that over 60 of our member companies helped create, including many who are here. I can see friends from Panasonic and Toyota, and I'm sure many others of you in the room, which was beautifully championed by our friends at METI under the Japanese G7 presidency in 2023, to have that guidance endorsed by the G7 energy, climate and environment ministers was a real breakthrough. And I can't tell you how much inbound email traffic we've had from financial and policymakers as a result. So we're on a great trajectory, but not only about that guidance, but also to help to standardize these types of assessments and approaches, including alignment across other voluntary standard setters. And we really, really appreciate the bridges that we're building with our friends from ISO, PCAF and IEC to help take these forward, because this cannot be a splintered agenda. We have to use the same language, the same approach to drive a commonality. So under the framework that is our friends at ISSB, what I'm really excited about is not only the production of guidance, but also the harmonization of the landscape and the willingness of all of us as actors in the space to start to link this together. And I think this starts to give us a real opportunity of accelerating the innovation agenda in a commonly measured and ability to understand the impact it can have way. Now, looking ahead with the support of Bloomberg Philanthropy and the Generation Foundation, the WBCSD team is currently working, as we heard, on refining this guidance that was created in 2023 to create language and an approach that is able to be turned into a common standard. We want to take the guidance and work with you with technical advisory and create language which can then be put into these different standard approaches. We will be sharing key themes that this work will focus on, but I'm delighted to say that under the leadership of our excellent champion, Marvin Henry here, we've opened our consultation process today. So if you're sitting here, don't let this be something that drives past you. Be part of it and talk to this man here about engaging in the consultation process. As anybody who's in the standards and guidance community knows, it's absolutely that multi-stakeholder consultation process that will sharpen and refine these frameworks to be the kind of standards language that we need. We will launch, Marvin, Alex, friends, we will launch a sharpened, updated guidance in the first half of 2025, 6 months' time. I remember standing here at Sharm el-Sheikh with our friends from METI saying, we will launch the guidance for avoided emissions at the Sapporo G7 climate, energy, environment. We did. I remember standing here at Dubai at the next one saying, we will turn the avoided emissions guidance into standardized language. We are. And I love the idea that we're creating a sprint to do this because the world needs this quickly and it needs it accurately. So we will launch a sharpened, updated guidance in the first half of 2025, and it will contain language and approaches that can be used by standard developers such as you are here today. But we need to work with you on that process. So that's why we're excited about bringing the concept of avoided emissions to life, developing good practice, a repository of case studies, and we've actually also launched alongside that consultation process a publicly accessible implementation hub to contain use cases, assessment, reporting templates, and sector-specific applications, for example, in the built environment, in ag and food sectors. And that's why we're delighted to work with many of the companies here and others, such as Ajinomoto, Nomura Asset Management, Mizuho Capital. And we're also delighted to be doing this in strong collaboration with METI, the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry in Japan, to take this forward. So I hope, ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues, experts, professionals, interested passerbys in this space, you're beginning to see the importance of this agenda for the intervention to complement the inventory and to drive that innovation agenda to celebrate the great work that is taking place to create a consistent disclosure framework to tackle this horrendous challenge we face of climate change and turn it into an innovation opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dominic. We appreciate our collaboration. Next, let's give our full attention to Ms. Mardi, Chief of Strategic Affairs and Capacity Building, ISSB, to share about their insight of avoided emissions.
Thank you very much. And Dominic, you're hard to follow, but I'll start off by saying a huge thank you to WBCSD for all of your support you've given the IFRS Foundation as we've set up the ISSB, and for our work with the IASB as well. We couldn't have done it without you and without all of your companies behind us, so thank you. But then I must extend my thanks to Japan and all of your efforts to support the adoption of our standards. You've come out early. You backed us at the G7. You backed us at the G20. You've been an early adopter. You've gone out and brought our standards into the market and set a really high standard for others around the world to follow. So, a big round of applause to yourselves, because that is like world-class, leadership. And that's what we need to see a lot more of coming out of this COP. So, and Japan, you set the ballpark quite high for us. So now, you set the cats running. We now have over 30 jurisdictions across the world, 60 countries if you include all of the EU, now following our standards. That is now over 50% of GDP and 50% of global emissions, much faster than we could have expected. But it really has set that roadmap going, setting that global baseline, if you like, for sustainability standards, and that passport for businesses globally to be able to respond to all the different regulatory requirements that might be coming at them around the world to make it efficient and cost effective. And it also means that we can start talking about things like interoperability, and a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, and the importance of not having a whole lot of fragmented standards across the world. We really, I'm a standard setter. I've been a standard setter for 15 years in sustainability. I'm not proud of that. We now have to start thinking about how we start to bring all of this together. We don't need interoperable. We need exactly the same. But if we can't have it, we'll have interoperable, right? How do we get these things to be as close as possible so they can be as efficient as possible? They can give the investors the information they need as efficiently as possible, the regulators the information they need as efficiently as possible, and allow companies to do this in a way that allows them still to innovate, still create that important value, and get on with helping us with the transition. So all really important. But as standard setters, we're really good at putting our heads down and doing all the technical work and getting on with it. We're not so good at talking about what we're doing and talking to others about what we're doing and bringing everyone on board and telling you all how we fit together. There's lots of nodding heads in the audience. Are you feeling a bit of pain points here? We're not so good at doing it. And what we're doing here today and what WBCSD and you convening here today is great, because it's starting to help you all understand how we all fit together, because we're all not out there to try and compete with each other. We're all out there to try and fix different problems and help create a cohesive system. Now, but we just forget to tell you that we're doing that in the process. So at the IFRS Foundation, I'm going to give you a few things we are doing today. So rest assured, stuff is happening. We are talking to all our friends. So we are talking to PCAF. We are talking to make sure there's great alignment there and seeing maybe what could happen in the future. I'm not giving away anything. We do have our good friends at ISO and how we work together. Great for internal management, great for data structures, great for high quality data that you can send up through our standards and out to the market in a decision useful, consistent, comparable way. Where, as Dominic said, we're working very closely with the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, making sure that we get that as tucked in, make it as easy as possible for you to do your reporting and disclosure and understand what comes out. We're working very closely with GRI, making sure as all our new standards are linked in. Many of you corporate reporters would do CDP, am I right? Yes, lots of CDP reporters out there. We aligned this year as their climate standard with S2. So you can write once or use many. We're looking at digital taxonomies now. How can we tag that data so that you can get it easily and use it around? We're really trying to make this system work as seamlessly as we possibly can. And so, I'm really excited to hear this panel today, because I want to know how they're all working together to make your lives easier as well, and how this is all going to connect up and collaborating. But friends, this is my plea, not necessarily from the IFRS Foundation, but as Mardi, that's been doing this for quite some time now. The clock's ticking. We need to mobilize an awful lot of money. We need to work together. We need to make sure these are all harmonized and connected and stack up in one coherent and consistent story. So get behind this consultation with WBCSD and really help us make sure, get behind our standards, keep consulting, start using them all. Tell us if you don't like them. Tell us if they don't work for you, because this is a real chance. We're flying the plane and building it at the same time. And we need everyone on board on that. But again, thank you, Japan, for your leadership in this space. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the insightful speech. Next session, we will dive into a case study on avoided emissions to better understand its impact. I am pleased to hand over the floor to Dr. Marvin, the avoided emissions lead at WBCSD.
Thank you very much, Haruka, and also from my side, thanks a lot to METI and TAJIRI-san for hosting us, giving us the opportunity to speak here. I just want to give you a very short intervention. We have heard now so much about the open consultation that we are launching today. So I invite you all to participate in it. This is really the first time that we sent our work through this public feedback process. We had a very robust process to develop the first guidance that is currently out there. But we also, on the path to working towards standardization of this work, need to, of course, go through this public feedback process. I invite you to scan also this QR code, support us in this work. Thanks, Dominic, for the shout out and also for the slight mandate to push this forward, where you see our latest thinking. So this is built on our analysis of more than 10 emerging frameworks from many of the standard setters that we have heard about already today, but also on the testing that we started right away when we launched this guidance. So this is a very early stage and nascent space, the intervention-based impact accounting area. So therefore, we started working with our members from the get-go to understand if it works, what are the guardrails that are required, and what are practical pitfalls that we may have to adjust. And that is the other part next to the review of existing and emerging frameworks that led to our refinement themes that you can review, and we invite you to feedback on in this open consultation. But enough of the standard setters for a moment. I think what's also very important is that avoided emissions is not only a concept that needs to evolve on the methodological side, but it can also drive implementation. So if we jump to the next page, we want to have basically two topics that we really want to double down on. One is, which is also a theme of this year's COP, climate finance. And the other one is one of the key themes for WBCSD going forward, implementation. So we want to show you and bring this concept to life through connecting is to emerging financial methodologies, but also to financial mechanisms, right? What the G7 openly mandated to WBCSD when they endorsed our work. So we have two amazing companies from Japan, Mizuho Securities and Ajinomoto. Hiromu-san from Ajinomoto and MORISHITA-san from Mizuho Securities, who will talk about the implementation of avoided emissions, which can already start today before a standard is out there. So that's very important that we create this practical evidence, link the implementation to the standard, to evolving standards landscape, and therefore we double down on that. And with that, and not much further ado, I pass on to MORISHITA-san to lead us through the impact that avoided emissions can already have in climate finance and transition finance.
Thank you, Marvin. And thank you, METI and WBCSD for inviting me here. So in front of the great leaders. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here in the COP. Yeah, and first of all, I will introduce myself. I'm a father for two children in high school, and recently I recognized what the importance of the balance between carrots and sticks. It's a little bit too late, yeah. But this is a key message. The balance between carrots, like avoided emission, and sticks, like Scope 3, to mobilize private sectors towards a climate transition. So this is a key message. So let's start our presentation. Go to next page. So Mizuho Securities supports issuers to make sustainable finance frameworks, and often we recommend avoided emission in the avoided emissions in the framework. Our next page, please. So what is the relationship with avoided emission and sustainable finance? You can see here clearly. And we're going to talk about today about green bonds and transition bonds. So green bond is designed to support sufficient climate-related and environmental projects. And this attribution of avoided emission is directly observable in the project use of proceeds. Investors and companies alike could further use avoided emission in context of transition finance, transition bonds, which focusing on the companies aspiring to reduce their GHG emissions. And the green bond market is very huge. This is US $4.2 trillion in last years. And also, these bonds aligned with the e-commerce rules, like GBP, Green Bond Principles, or CTFH, Climate Transition Finance Handbook. Go to next page. Let's see the first case. This is the Nippon Steel Green Bond. This bond issued in 2023. The amount is $50 billion, 50 billion JPY, and this gets the SPO, second party opinion. Nippon Steel have good purpose. They show their purpose in the Nippon Steel's carbon neutral vision 2050s, and this provides two values: reducing CO2 emissions in society and reducing CO2 emissions from steel making processes. And Nippon Steel issued bonds for finance, for finance production facilities of non-oriented electrical steel sheets. You can see the picture. This is a motor of car-friendly, a motor of eco-friendly car. And after issuing, they disclosed impact using avoided emissions. They show the calculation, how to calculate the avoided emission. You can see the formula. So next page. The second case is Kawasaki Heavy Industries Transition Bond. This bond issued 2024, and the amount is 10 billion JPY. It also gets SPO. Kawasaki has also had a good purpose. They have a group vision 2030s. And Kawasaki Heavy sets the sustainable finance targets and established the world first master framework for all types of sustainable finance. They choose project and they issued this bond. Use of proceeds is the project related to transportation and storage of liquefied hydrogen carriers and liquefied hydrogen storage tanks, as well as for the usage of energy such as hydrogen jet turbine for power generations. They also disclose impact after issuing in the impact report. They issued the avoided emission in their impact report. Go to next. So what is the implication for the structuring sustainable bonds? There is 4 points. One is the connectivity with each company's value creation, like a purpose, project, impact. The second point is impact reporting can provide a variety of information useful for company and investors' engagement. Third point is avoided emission is one metric that the frameworks adopt to monitor and measure the production and the use of green products. The fourth is importance of securing transparency of avoided emissions, avoided emissions methodologies in green finance frameworks. Go to next. So this is what Mizuho doing for the avoided emissions. Mizuho has published a report focused on the avoided emissions. In the report, it shows there are 122 companies disclosing the avoided emission in last fiscal years. And also Mizuho's achievement, Mizuho fully support the customers throughout entire processes from the preliminary assessment of avoided emission, blah, 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 and financing implementations. And also Mizuho had a good range of achievement in sustainable finance. And go to next. We're also joining the rulemaking. Do you know Green Enabling Project guidance document? So in this document, avoided emission is recommended. And we, Mizuho, is one of the key active contributor to publication of this guidance. Finally, remember our short message. This is important, the balance of carrots and sticks, avoided emission and scope 3. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really interesting. I think the link between finance and business and the role it already plays in decision making. Now we also want to understand how it drives innovation in value chains and the operational decision making, in bringing it to life when engaging with different stakeholders along the value chains. Where Ajinomoto has really created an interesting case and a very creative approach to help not only themselves but also farmers as well as food manufacturers to cut emissions and create value for customers. So I invite Hiromu-san to take us to that case, and thank you for your contribution.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hiromu Takahashi from Ajinomoto, Japan. First of all, thanks so much for this opportunity. And today, I would like to introduce one of the initiatives, which is amino acid balance feed to create both social and economic value. As you know, when dairy and beef cattle are raised, various greenhouse gases are generated. Enteric methane emission is the largest. But there are various greenhouse gases, such as CO2 from feed, cultivation, nitrous oxide from manure, and so on. Its emissions are extremely large, accounting for the 9.5% of the world greenhouse gas emissions, and are considered one of the causes of global warming. On the other hand, the recent rise in feed cost makes a farmer's financial situation difficult. Generally, greenhouse gas reduction requires additional cost. Therefore, it is necessary to introduce methods that can reduce greenhouse gas and improve farmers' profit at the same time. We, Ajinomoto, are trying to solve this global issue with using amino acid technology. Next, please. We, Ajinomoto, is one of the biggest amino acid and food company. Ajinomoto was founded in 1909 and is now over 110 years old. We are expanding our business all over the world. With using amino acid as source, we are expanding our business. And with using functional nutrition, we are providing amino acid not only for human, but also for animal, especially focusing on dairy and beef cattle. Currently, we are providing solutions to reduce greenhouse gas for dairy and beef cattle by using amino acid. So I'd like to introduce the advantage of amino acid balance feed and also current initiatives. Next, please. And this is a summary about advantage of greenhouse gas reduction by amino acid balance feed. And the first advantage is reduction of a wide range of greenhouse gas, not only methane, but also N2O or CO2 from feed cultivation. And with our trial data, methane reduction by 10%, N2O reduction from manure by 25%, and CO2 reduction from feed ingredient sourcing by 20%. And second advantage of feed cost reduction. With our estimation, $0.3 per head of cow cost reduction by AjiPro-L can be achieved or reduction greenhouse gas emission. As I mentioned in first slide, it is necessary to introduce methods that can reduce greenhouse gas and improve farmers' profit at the same time. But costs tend to rise when trying to reduce environmental impact. Therefore, cost reduction is a very unique feature of our solution. And CH4 reduction additive is one of the good example of cost increase to reduce environmental impact. But by our solution, additional cost to implement a CH4 reduction additive can be absorbed. Therefore, it becomes much easier to introduce these new methods. And the third advantage is that our methods are certified to count on greenhouse gas reduction. Our solutions are registered in Japanese carbon credit system, which is called J-Credit, making it possible to convert the amount of reduction into economic value or obtain external certification. Next, please. The solutions I have explained so far can contribute to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and lower cost. And the impact of greenhouse gas reduction is approximately 1 ton of greenhouse gas per cow per year. We aim to collaborate with dairy manufacturers, meat manufacturers, and local government to introduce the solution to their contracted farmers, thereby contributing to the reduction of their Scope 3 emissions. We have already started collaboration with global dairy manufacturers, Danone, major Japanese dairy manufacturers, Meiji Group, Kagoshima Prefecture, which boasts the largest number of beef cattle in Japan, and various other global dairy and meat manufacturers. Next, please. I'd like to introduce a little bit more detail about the collaboration with Meiji Group, which is one of the largest dairy manufacturer in Japan. In a collaboration, we built a business model that utilizes the J-Credit system to simultaneously reduce greenhouse gas emissions and create economic value in the dairy industry. Meiji Group attracts a farmer which supply raw milk to them to the project. And Ajinomoto will sell AjiPro-L to Meiji Group, and Meiji Group will provide materials including AjiPro-L to their contracted dairy farmers. This allows dairy farmers to reduce not only greenhouse gas emissions, but also costs. In addition, using the J-Credit system, Ajinomoto will process the conversion of greenhouse gas reductions into credit on behalf of the dairy farmers and Meiji groups. On the other hand, the considerations for the credit is paid to the farmer by Meiji Group as incentives. Therefore, farmers get credit incentive in addition to feed cost reduction. This model is for dairy cattle, but of course, we can apply for beef cattle. Next, please. And this slide features the voice of those participating in our collaboration. From Meiji, we have received a positive feedback that our model, which balances greenhouse gas emission reduction with economic benefits for dairy farmers, encourage farmer participation. From a field company, we have been praised for achieving cost reduction without affecting milk yield, despite the challenge of making bold change to the feed. And from dairy farmers, we have heard that they are pleased that the cows willingly eat the feed, and they intend to continue using the amino acid balance feed with AjiPro-L, which balances cow health and environmental impact reduction. In this way, our model, which can create economic benefits for farmers, which reducing greenhouse gas emissions is considered an important solution for accelerating greenhouse gas reductions from cattle in the future. Furthermore, to expand our solution, we aim to work on establishing a global framework. For example, we plan to collaborate with external organizations such as WBCSD to include our solution in avoided emission protocol. And also work with the Japanese government to utilize international conference like today's COP to increase international recognition and establish our solution as a standardized greenhouse gas reduction measure in the global livestock industry. And by leveraging systems such as a JCM, we aim to provide effective greenhouse gas reduction measures, particularly in countries with high agricultural greenhouse gas emissions, thereby contributing to Japan's NDC achievement and global greenhouse gas emission reductions. Yeah, that's all my presentation. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for a wonderful speech. Let's give so before we move on to the panel discussion, we would like to have a photo session. I would like to ask the presenters and panelists of this seminar to come up on stage. So much. So now let's move on to the panel discussion.
So now let's get to the really exciting part. We talk standards. We have a very good news that we are going into this discussion. The challenge is we only have roughly around 30 minutes. So let's get us going. There's a distinct panel I would like to introduce to you first, and then we go into the discussion. The question is, how can global standard setters contribute to robust, transparent, and comparable avoided emissions assessment and disclosures? Dominic mentioned it already, like WBCSD is currently refining the guidance into a refined version that you will see coming up in H1 2025. That's the great news. Here, WBCSD can only go as far as we are going, and then we need to get standard setters much more engaged and also leveraging what is there and take it further so that it goes through credible multi-stakeholder processes. So on our panel today, we have online Angelica Afanador. I hope you can hear us. Can you raise it? Wonderful. Angelica leads PCAF. We already heard about it, a global initiative that enables financial institutions to measure and disclose greenhouse gas emissions associated with their loans and investments. Under Angelica's leadership, PCAF has expanded its global standard to include methodologies for various asset classes. PCAF, and that's relevant also for today, launched a Green and Transition Finance Working Group where avoided emissions and finance are being addressed. So welcome being with us here online.
Thank you very much.
So on our panel here on the far right from my side, we have Benoit Desforges, who serves as the chair of ISO's subcommittee on greenhouse gas and climate change management and related activities. With over 30 years in federal public service, he has held various management positions, including vice president of the Energy Directorate at Measurement Canada. And ISO recently started a process to work through their standards on corporate product carbon footprint. So we will hear how this one has started and how it is evolving. Welcome. Ovais. Ovais was many years here as Deputy Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework for Convention of Climate Change. The pavilion is just around the corner. Today, he is here with us in his function as being the Vice Chair of the Steering Committee for the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. The Greenhouse Gas Protocol, in there, he contributes to develop all the standardized frameworks for measuring and managing emissions. And currently, the Greenhouse Gas Protocol started a revision of its process. Welcome, Ovais. And last but not least, Uehara-san. He has held key leadership position at Panasonic over his career. He is an executive officer at Panasonic Operational Excellence. But today, you are here in a function for the IEC, where you are heavily engaged, the International Electrotechnical Commission, working on a standard for avoided emissions, but you're also very much engaged on WBCSD avoided emissions work. So let's come to the first round of questions to get a sense of where the initiative standards are at the moment. Ovais, perhaps we can start with you. What is the current plan for the Greenhouse Gas Protocol to revise its standards?
Thank you very much. And it's a great pleasure for me to be here. And thanks to all the organizers for bringing us together. In my role as the Vice Chair of the Greenhouse Gas Protocol Steering Committee, I strongly believe in making sure that whatever we do has to be credible, has to have the integrity and transparency. And that's why we have set up a very robust governance structure, which is being implemented right now as we speak for the Greenhouse Gas Protocol to make sure its standards live up to the expectations that the community, the stakeholders expect from such a standard. So that's where we are. And and any standard for that matter, it's not a static thing. It needs to evolve. It's a living thing. So measuring the avoided emissions is a journey which needs to be carefully managed, and we don't need to make any shortcuts and do the full due diligence in its evolution. So that's where we are.
Thank you. Let's go over to Angelica online. Angelica, what is the role of avoided emissions in the green and transition finance context?
Well, thanks so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. And for me, for me and for everyone in the room and everyone watching us online, it is not secret that limiting the global temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels requires innovation. And so we have, since the Paris Agreement, the financial industry has grown the value to investments in green tech, in innovation, in decarbonization. But neither the financial industry nor the counterparties they finance had a detailed and rigorous, well-established method to measure the positive climate impact of those investments. So that's why transition finance is so imperative. So we are truly to be on the path to achieve the net zero before 2050. And many financial institutions like banks, investors especially, make claims today of the amounts of dollars that are channeled towards green infrastructure, green products, green technologies, and solutions that will help reduce planetary emissions. But to date, they can only claim the amount of financing. And the questions are, one, is the money really achieving the emission reductions and avoided emissions in the real economy? And second, how can we quantify that positive impact and that is that the actual emissions avoided and reduced? So if we can't offer this to the industry, banks, investors alike will not have the tools to navigate the transition finance space in confidence. And transition finance then claims where could be risked as seen as greenwashing.
Thank you, Angelica. Benoit, you're representing ISO. ISO, as I said, is starting a revision process for its main standards on climate. What is the role avoided emissions may play in there?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here. It's my first year as chair of this committee, and for me, it was a great opportunity to come here at COP to really collaborate and discuss with all the key stakeholders. Just to give a little bit of some ideas of ISO, and I'm joining what Ovais just said, but that's what it is. It's the stakeholder engagement. That's the basis of the development of standards by ISO, engaging so many stakeholders all over the planet, ensuring that you have the best experts and have a very, very rigorous process that we put together. So for us, it's for ISO, it's extremely important, and to make sure that the standards will be relevant. We were working on different things. I was there 2 weeks ago. I was in London with the plenary of my group, Greenhouse Gas and Climate Change. We're revising the greenhouse gas, the GHG quantification standards 14064 -1 -2 for organization, for projects. We're also revising the carbon footprint. And we are starting as well the net zero standard. This was like based on the IWA and International Working Agreement that ISO did a few years ago. And now we're standardizing this with hundreds of experts all over the world. And we had even 2 weeks ago, 75 experts from all over the world looking at that in person, as much as another 50 online. So those are very important work. And we're ensuring also that we have, that everything, the language that we're using is also, ensuring that it's the same language in every standardization.
Thank you. So for ISO, so that's cross-sectorial. Let's go to a sectorial perspective, Uehara-san. So how have you been working on IEC standardization for avoided emissions?
Okay, thank you, Alex. So I'm from Panasonic, but today I'm on the stage on behalf of the IEC. So in the IEC, the Mrs. Hirta of Schneider Electric served as a convener for avoided emission standardizations. And we at Panasonic is working on this standardization together with many companies, such as the Daikin, Hitachi, Fujitsu. So because the Japan expert proposed avoided emission to the IEC. So IEC standard covered at this moment the calculation method and reporting of the avoided emissions. And we are working closely with ISO and WBCSD. And under the Mrs. Hirta's strong leadership, we are now in the final phase toward the international standard, IS. So I believe, we think it can be issued until first half of 2025, next year. So we will get the international standard of avoided emission. That is a good progress, I think. That means this international standard will enable us to quantify the avoided emission, quantified emission reduction through a product. So I think all electronics, electrical, including the software industry, can quantify the avoided emission and to appeal. This is the current status of IEC. Thank you.
Thank you, Uehara-san. So let's go a bit more specific. So we have heard some use cases already. So companies really are longing for a standardized approach, how to measure, how to disclose avoided emissions. And I think all of the various standard bodies have already worked on it on various stages. But perhaps again, coming back, Ovais, to you. So there were consultations already around, yes, there's the inventory, and now we are coming to intervention, to all the climate solutions. Is there anything that those consultations revealed about how this intervention-based accounting will be gone, and how also GHGP will be addressing it in their work on market-based accounting?
Thank you, Alex. And as was already mentioned, I think a transparent stakeholder engagement and feedback is essential in developing any of the standards. So that was very clear in that reaching out to the stakeholders and getting their feedback. And the request was very, very clear that they need greater guidance, clarity of purpose, and clarity of what is going to produce in terms of the standard, so that it is well understood, it's cross-sectoral, and can be implemented in a transparent and a rigorous fashion. So that is the demand. Now comes the work of making sure it is delivered according to the expectations, as I said.
Thank you. So on Angelica, on PCAF, perhaps you can go a bit deeper, that you have a working group dedicated to these topics, and if you can share a bit of the progress that have been made so far.
Absolutely, Nick. So I'm not sure, Nick, if the audience is aware of what PCAF is, and if you may want me to just say a little bit about it before I go in detail.
Please go ahead. Yes, please do.
So PCAF, that abbreviation basically means the Partnership for Carbon Accounting Financials. And it's a partnership of industry players, financial institutions such as banks, investors, insurance companies, etc., that are globally spread. Today, there are more than 545 institutions part of this initiative. What the goal of PCAF is to harmonize the way financial institutions measure the emissions associated with financial activities. And PCAF has focused on the negative impact, sort of say, because it's generated emissions in the real economy, but indirected financed by the financial industry. So since 2019, we have been working in PCAF to develop standards to measure the greenhouse gas emissions associated with loans, investments, capital market instruments, and transactions, and insurance products. And so remember, the objective is harmonize and interoperability, alignment. It's at the core of PCAF. And so as the industry, the financial industry, started to measure and disclose their emissions using the PCAF standard, in parallel, the net zero transition became the central stage. And there was a concern that they couldn't tell a rigorous accounting story of the positive impact of their investments. So what I said earlier in the first question, there's a lot of money going into green investments and a lot of financial claims are being made, but the accounting story cannot be made yet by the industry. So what we did is we knew that this was important, but then we also developed standards by the demand of the industry. So we surveyed our PCAF signatories, the more than 500 institutions that are part of this organization. These are of all types, of all sizes, and spread across more than 100 countries. And there was a clear need, a clear demand from the industry to develop a methodological guidance to really help the industry showcase how that they are contributing to decarbonization through that green investment and transition finance. And this engagement really reflects our commitment to creating standards that are not only technically rigorous, but responsive and impactful to the needs of the industry. So therefore, last year, we launched this working group, Nick, that you mentioned, to develop methodological guidance to account for finance-avoided emissions. And I emphasize finance because this is for the financial industry. And the working group is composed of PCAF signatories, experts in transition finance, and also experts in related financial products. We actually are going to be launching a public consultation in the next few weeks. And actually would like to take the opportunity to invite all of those in the room and virtually to participate in this consultation. For us, PCAF, it is a vital next step. Public insight and feedback to fine-tune the methods and the collective work of the industry to this point is essential.
So there's I hope you heard this, there's a second to do. It's another public consultation to provide feedback on. And I strongly believe that those public consultations are really worthwhile doing it. I've been in a corporate side myself, so I know it's a bit of work, obviously, to get in there. But if you want standards that are robust, that are practical, we all need to lean in from the various stakeholder audiences. So Mardi mentioned it before, we need much more harmonization, much more alignment. If I go back to Benoit, like obviously ISO, you are thinking through it and you really seek to understand what is it that you can do to further support harmonization and alignment, especially as you're currently started to revise the climate change standards.
Yeah, what I can say just to finalize the response that the first question you asked me regarding the avoided emission, it doesn't exist right now in ISO in our standards, but we're working on it. We already made an amendment for the 14064, which is a quantification and monitoring of greenhouse gases to include the definition of avoided emission. As well, we had a good presentation by Marvin 3 weeks ago in London to provide that to our committee. So we're looking right now at including that. You know, the discussion is ongoing, including with the net zero standard. That's a topic that is presently in discussion as well. So we're making the steps to do that, and by different means possible. But we realize in our group that yes, it's an issue that we need, a concept that we need absolutely to work on, as well as potentially additional standards or amendment to standards. But for me, to answer your second question, yes, it's extremely important, the collaboration, the discussion. I was really amazed by Dominic and Margie's speech. That's what, you know, it resonated with me, because that's what it is. It's the collaboration we need. We need to collaborate and ensure that we have a similar way to go in terms of attacking and you know, global warming and climate change, greenhouse gases, mitigation, avoided emissions. So for me, that's extremely important, and that's why I decided to join. So what I want to do is start discussing. I think it's a first step that we have today for me to meet the necessary player in this issue, and then try to arrive to collaborate. Could be an MOU, and we don't need to start like, you know, changing everything, having all the standards be aligned. You start with a project, we start with one standard, and then we see what works, and then we evolve. And that's my belief in how I want to see that. So I'm discussing closely with the Central Secretariat, with ISO on this too, and then we'll engage everybody to try to move in the right direction.
And you have your pavilion not far from here, so I invite everyone who has not been to the ISO pavilion. So there's a great program, many panels to also go there. So you don't have a public consultation, but perhaps you can share a bit. Like, I think there are national bodies that are working. So how can stakeholders feed into this process? Probably through the national bodies, right?
Yeah, that's how ISO works. Yeah, for me, it's with the way I work is with all the national body and consulting on the national body to ensure consensus. It's always consensus based. So we'll discuss this with the national bodies.
Yeah. Uehara-san, going back to your role for today on IEC, what are your thoughts on why standardization of avoided emissions is relevant for the electronic industry?
Thank you. So the reason why we make a standard, so standardization will make avoided emission fair, reliable, and comparable. So 6 or 7 years ago, the company calculated our avoided emission and disclosed according to its own rules. So this has led to discussion of greenwashing. So in IEC, we thoroughly discussed how to avoid greenwashing. So there are 2 key points. So one is the IEC standard prohibit offsetting avoided emission from a company's own emissions. A second is the IEC standard makes it clear that baseline will be renewed annually and calculated conservative as a market average. So I think that this is essential not only for electronics industry, but also the whole industry. So today, I'm honored and very happy to join here, and all international standardization representative gathered here. It's a great opportunity, I think. So we believe when we aligned with us, so we'll make one standard of the avoided emission. So after that, so I believe government and the financial institution can identify superior decarbonization solutions to provide incentive and make investment decisions.
Thank you, Uehara-san. So perhaps coming to a closing round with remaining thoughts on what do you think is now further needed? And we talked about it already, to strengthen the exchange, the alignment globally between all the leading global standard setters, also with the practitioners. So we have seen examples, we see them here from various Japanese companies on really making it credible, further incentivize avoided emissions, but really having a stringent process to take this discussion further. I think, as we said today, we have huge leadership, but it is more starting now really to get on the specific topic of avoided emissions. Anyone who would like to start?
Thank you. And let me digress a bit and go beyond the topic of the discussion that we have. Why are we here? What are we doing? And for what? This is a personal perspective. I am recently coming from Spain. That's where I live, 50 kilometers from Valencia, where the recent flooding happened. Fortunately, we were not affected, but we were involved in the cleanup effort, and more than 200 lives were lost, and devastation was just enormous. The point is, every fraction of degree of warming is resulting in loss of lives and livelihoods around the world. So in inverse to that, every fraction of an emission that is saved or reduced will have a positive impact. And that's what we are talking about in providing the tools, the technology, and the standards for the corporate world and many stakeholders to do exactly that. So we need to also be aware of the purpose of doing what we are doing and why we are here.
That's much needed. Thank you. Thank you, Ovais, and thank you for your leadership. Who wants to go next? Angelica, what is next to come from PCAF? How do you link also finance emissions, perhaps later on, to real economy interventions? Over to you.
I really like what Ovais just said, and I wanted to build upon that. The purpose that we have in PCAF is to empower the financial industry so that they have the tools to take action and inform action on supporting the decarbonization and the net zero emission efforts that are needed. So for us, this is the purpose, and that is the purpose that leads the work that we're doing on standardization for the financial industry. Now, I already said this, but I want to emphasize interoperability. It's just so important. It's at the heart of the PCAF work. And I welcome all the efforts to cooperate with the stakeholders to ensure we establish methodologies for the financial industry that are robust, that are
It seems like we have lost you, Angelica. Well, she was coming to a close. So perhaps we get her back in a minute. So the efforts that are needed are we need to relentlessly work on it. It's a marathon we are running. So perhaps Benoit, over to you. What is next to come, and where do you feel like really this is a call for action also on the topic of avoided emissions?
I will follow what you said today. It's exactly that. I think we're looking at the big picture here, and I think we need to ensure that we have so many organisms of standardization around just here today, just a few. We need to ensure that there's linkage, ensuring one voice, because you can have the best standard in the world, you can draft it, develop it, but if it stays on the shelf and nobody uses it, it's useless. So that's what we need to do to ensure this discussion, because and I've seen it, we've seen it all, and that's why we need to achieve what Ovais was saying before.
Thank you, Angelica. We have you back, right? So sorry.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, my internet connection probably.
To close your statement before you got lost.
Yeah. So I was talking about collaboration, right? And collaboration to ensure that the methodologies that we developed are robust, are transparent, but more importantly enough, practical to implement. And I wanted to call out WBCSD because the collaboration that we've had with them and with the organization has been so beneficial to the work that PCAF has been doing in the last year with this Green and Transition Finance working group. And it's really, Marvin, Henry in the room and his team have been instrumental in this process. So I really want to thank Marvin and his team for that. We also engage with the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, the ISSB, GRI, ISO, and other standard setters, ensuring that we are providing aligned and interoperable methods for the financial industry. So I wanted to just emphasize this, and I continue welcoming those collaborations, and I'm here to support that work.
Thank you very much, Angelica. So the collaboration with PCAF is much welcome, much valued, and yes, very happy to take the next steps together. Uehara-san, final thoughts, how to further continue from here, how to further harmonize, to take our joint work that we are on this journey, journey forward.
Thank you. Thank you. So everyone understood the current product and technologies cannot achieve the 1.5 degree target. This is the current year story. So that's why industry have to develop the new product, energy efficient product, and new technologies to achieve the 1.5 degree. So this is our mission, I believe. So to accelerate decarbonization innovations, avoided emission is one of the great power to us. So that's why Panasonic, not only Panasonic, all industry try to promote avoided emission, I believe. So of course, the ISO cover the wide range of industry. So now we are joining the IEC, but from this year, we'd like to jump into the ISO to make standardized of avoided emission. That's my message.
Thank you. Thank you to all the panelists. So your leadership in your respective organizations is much welcomed, much needed. And I know it is the leadership, and it's also then all the technical people, so the hundreds and thousands of people who are really going through all that technical work. So every time I see one of those papers, one of the revisions, one of the, coming together and really trying to find a way forward that is based on all the principles, on transparency, on credibility, on comparability. This is such a, much needed work, but also like a huge thank you for the work that you have been doing, and much even more that will come, because as we were saying at the beginning, Dominic, so the time for action is now. So we need to reduce emissions, so on inventories, and we need intervention accounting to go beyond and to further scale low carbon emissions. Thank you, and a huge round of applause for our panel.
Yeah. Thank you to all our panelists for their valuable insights. This concludes our panel discussion. And now, I would like to invite METI's director, Hiroshi Maeda, to deliver the closing remarks. Maeda-san, over to you.
The session was over, so if you want to run away, you can do that. And thank you very much for all the panelists to input to this very insightful seminar. And thank you to all the audiences gathering here. I didn't imagine this kind of very crowded people here. And I also appreciate, or I really express my sincere gratitude to WBCSD and also Marvin for dedicating your efforts to this successful seminar. And we welcome the second consultation, open consultation for the WBCSD's consultation. And now the companies are becoming the service solution providers rather than the risk factors. And it's quite important to establish the avoided emissions as one of the credible methodologies for evaluating this kind of solution providers of companies. And that's why we are willing to work hard to prevail this concept and methodologies, not only inside the G7 community, but also go beyond. So yeah, thank you very much for gathering here.